9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Well, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, no matter what time of day it is when you are watching this week's episode of the Fireplace Show. I want to welcome you here. And the Fireplace Show is a broadcast that's sponsored by CVC Success Group. And the purpose of this show, our mission, is to share with consumers across America and around the world about their chimneys, about problems with their fireplaces, their wood stoves, their gas logs, or other hearth appliances. My name's Jerry Isenhour. I am the owner of CVC Success Group, and my team and myself welcome you here tonight to be with us if you're listening to the live. Now, as we go through this, I want you to feel free to share this on your own social media pages and help get the information out to the consumers of America and around the world where we can help them see issues that they may want to look at. So tonight's subject matter is making a chimney check a part of your spring home maintenance budget. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to share with you some things to look at on your own chimney and fireplace that may key you in that you've got some issues here. Now, tonight I have a special guest. My guest is joining me from Houston, Texas. His name is Lee Roff, and he is the owner of Lord's Chimney that's located in Houston, Texas. And Lee's been in the business quite a few years, has a very viable, very good business down there in Houston, serving the citizens of the Houston, Texas market. And actually, he's worked all the way over into New Orleans and other part of Texas over the years. Been in the business quite a few years. So we're going to do our intro music in just a second. When we come back from the intro, we're going to have Lee joining us on the show here. So look forward. Feel free to bring your questions in through the comment bars. And again, feel free to share this on your own social media and help us spread this education amongst the consumers of America. So I want to welcome you back here to the Fireplace Show. And here's my friend Lee Roff. Lee, how you doing today? How are things down in Houston, Texas this evening?
Hot, like always.
Always hot. And that may surprise people that you actually run a chimney service, a chimney sweep business down in Houston, Texas, which is kind of a tropical atmosphere, but it does get cold. In fact, there's been some times when y'all really been cold down there. So let's start this off. Let's give them a little bit of background, Lee. Like you were a U.S. Army veteran, came out of the U.S. Army. I believe you went to school, got a degree, and decided to enter into the world of chimney service. So tell people a little bit about yourself, please, and about your family, too, while we're doing this.
Sure. I started off as a military musician, so I did that for 4 years. I got out. I went to the University of Houston. I was an entrepreneurship student. This was my business plan going in. So during the implementation stage of college, I implemented. I then got married to my wife, who I met in the military, and now we have 3 little boys. So it's always fun. Every day is a different adventure.
That's it, Lee. So let's talk about Houston and chimney problems down there, which are kind of unique, and it's a little bit different than we see in other parts of the country. So, Lee, what are kind of problems do you see that chimneys and fireplaces have down there in Houston?
The main problems in Houston are water, lack of use, critters, and just improper design in general, because people assume they're not going to be used. So they don't design them correctly. And then when it's time to use them, it actually doesn't work out well at all.
Yep, that's it. So in your business, you do both chimney inspection and you also do chimney repairs, chimney service, those type of things to help people with their problems. And then you also do install appliances in and fireplaces in homes down there. It's not a really big wood stove market down there, but you have a lot of gas products, a lot of gas logs. Would that be correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay. So anyway, the purpose of tonight's show is, as it says in the title, is why you want to make a chimney check. And I'm going to use that term because it's something we used at the Chimney Safety Institute of America many years ago. that a chimney check was a very important thing to do and do it on an annual basis. In fact, this is reinforced by the National Fire Protection Association, which is a volunteer group of fire chiefs, building inspectors, and other safety officials that get together and set the safety requirements. So, Lee, what does NFPA, which is the abbreviation for the National Fire Protection Association, what do they recommend as far as a chimney check or a chimney inspection should be done?
They recommend yearly inspections and clean as necessary.
Okay. So when we look at that, Lee, do you think most consumers actually do that and have their chimneys? And I'm going to call it the chimney check tonight, okay?
Sure.
Instead of the chimney inspection. Do you think they get their chimneys and their fireplaces checked on an annual basis? Or do you think a lot of customers, a lot of consumers just don't have this as a part of their home maintenance program?
Sure. Unless we have educated them on proper maintenance, 99% of people don't. They call us when there's a problem.
Right. So basically, when you get a call, a lot of your clients that call in, your customers, they got a problem. It may be like water coming in. It could be, you said a critter a while ago, which could be a raccoon, a squirrel, birds, anything else could be got into a chimney. And other things that go on are, do you ever get any calls because chimneys just stink in the summertime? Do you get odor issues related?
All the time.
So this is part of what we're doing. So if somebody's not using a chimney, a lot of times we just don't think about it. Why should I do this of calling the chimney and calling my chimney sweep, my chimney service company, and getting it checked? So Lee, you send one of your crews out and you go to a home. When we call for a chimney check, a chimney inspection, what all are your guys looking at?
They're looking at first at the outside of the fireplace, how it's designed, how tall it is, if it has any stains, if there's dark spots or light spots or white spots that are irregular to what should be there. We also inspect the inside of the fireplace. We have camera systems that we put in from the bottom. We go up and we look at every square inch of the inside of the fireplace to make sure it's designed correctly, to make sure there's no holes, no cracks, to make sure it's never been struck by lightning. It's never had anything happen with the earth moving or anything going on. Then we inspect the very top, make sure it's properly capped, that it's properly designed, that you're not going to have any water issues. But from top to bottom, everything but the stuff that's totally concealed gets inspected.
Okay. And one of the new concepts that we've recently rolled out and we've been doing some training with, and we're actually getting people that are going to be using this, is the use of an infrared camera that can spot defects in a chimney that we can't see with the naked eye. So is this part of your plan to start offering infrared inspections of chimneys to see these things that we may be missing at this time?
Yes, we're doing it now. We're starting to do the infrared inspections. It's great when there's a temperature differential between inside and outside, and just to see where water is. So it's another way to see. It's a way to see things that you can't see with the naked eye.
That's it. So, and again, when we take someone that has a fireplace, and this is one of the things that we've always promoted is not leaving creosote and soot in the chimney over the summertime, that it's part of a good home maintenance plan to have that chimney checked and swept if needed at the end of the burning season. And this is to prevent corrosion, it's to prevent the acids from staying in there and damaging that masonry materials. So would you agree with my assessment and my recommendation there, Lee?
Absolutely, because if you have it inspected every year, swept when necessary, you're preventing the stuff that happens long term. Because if you don't do proper maintenance, you get big repairs long term, where if you could cut it off at the very beginning, it would save you a ton of money.
Yeah, it was kind of like some years ago, Lee, and this may be before your time, but there's an oil filter company. It's called Fram Filters. So Fram used to have a television ad that went around and it talked about having your car maintained and changing your oil filter. And I can still remember the picture of that guy holding that oil filter. And his words were, hey, you can pay me now or you can pay me a whole lot more later. Would that be true about chimneys, Lee, that if we can catch these things before they become big issues, that it's going to be less of a budget hit than it's going to be for these massive repairs that come up later?
Yeah, it seems to be true in everything in life, which is maintenance is cheaper than just reacting once it's a big problem.
That's it. So, and when we go into this, we also have a lot of issues out there with safety. And sometimes we can catch these during the chimney check process. But what we're doing here is we're looking for the obvious defects, many times what a customer may not really see. So, would you agree with my assessment there, Lee?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to bring up some pictures, and Lee and I are going to go to the small screen, and we're going to bring up some pictures and put them here on the screen. And Lee, you and I are going to talk a little bit about these photos that are coming up on the screen right now and what we're looking at. So, Lee, that's a masonry chimney, and you can see if this picture was probably taken in the winter, maybe in the fall, early spring, because there's not a lot of leaves on those trees when you get past those evergreen trees. But tell me, when you look at this chimney right here, Lee, what do you see that's a problem on this chimney?
Number one, you can see the very top of it has really dark spots, which means that area is staying too wet. It's some kind of vegetation, mold, mildew, something growing up there that really shouldn't. And part of that's because it should have a crown that extends past the brick, like the eaves on your house, for water to run away. So this one has just a single flue cap or a small cap. We call it kind of like a baseball hat for your chimney, where having something that covers the whole top with drip edges to run water away from it is going to affect it. Also, we have a little farther down, a little bit of brick that sticks out. That's going to catch water. That's why you see more mold there. And that's why you see the brick actually kind of darkened in those spots, because it's staying too wet.
Right. Now, Lee, many consumers are not going to have this view of the chimney that we're looking at, because to see this view, you got to be on the roof. But one of the things that I like to stress in these shows when I do them is, what are the things that you can see from the ground? And when I look at this chimney, you can see where the outside of that chimney is definitely discolored. And that is an indication that it is retaining the rainwater that's getting into that brick. And you pointed out a couple things. Number one, the material on top, which is a layer supposed to be of concrete, should overhang the outside edge of that chimney. Or you can have a chimney cap that actually extends, and that gives us that drip edge right there. But if you see a chimney on your house and it's discolored, such as we're looking at right here, Lee, does that tell us that we got potential issues here?
In my experience, it almost guarantees you have issues.
Okay, so let's go a little bit deeper. If we see these kind of problems that are on the chimney, that chimney is commonly going to have something called flue liner in it that goes down through the chimney, and they're going to come in either 1 or 2 foot sections. And between those sections, when they're joined together, we put some sealant in between it, which is a mortar that's supposed to seal that joint up. So when we see a chimney that has this type of water entry issues, what do you usually find if you take that chimney scan camera that you got and lower it down through the chimney? What are you usually going to see in that flue area?
In our market especially, you're going to see flue tiles, and you're going to see mortar joints that are just open.
Okay. So let's talk about that a minute. So I've got mortar missing between my flue tiles. Okay, I'm a consumer. Big deal. What's the problem with that, Lee? Why is that a big deal if there's mortar missing between those flue tiles at those joints?
Well, the venting system, just to put it in the extremely simple terms, is there should be a hole at the bottom, at the hole at the top, and there should not be holes in between, because it's supposed to be gas tight from beginning to end. So that, and the way the chimney in the inside works is it's like a straw. So as the chimney kind of sucks the smoke up from the bottom, if you have holes, just like in your straw, it's not going to pull from the bottom, it's going to pull from the middle. So your chimney won't draft correctly. And if you have anything that leaks out, it's corrosive, and it can cause mortar damage and brick damage to the outside, which causes more water to come in. And then you're now into a self-fulfilling prophecy where it starts to get worse and worse and worse.
Gotcha. Now, while you were talking, I changed this photo in the slide, and we're seeing another chimney, and this was taken in the spring. I'm not sure if that's a Bradford pear tree that we see behind it. Could be a dogwood tree. Either, since that photo was taken right around here, those are 2 types of trees that we have in North Carolina where I live that have those white blooms in early spring. But again, we look at this chimney. Lee, Is that an average chimney that you find down there in Houston with the appearance where we have that blackened staining on that chimney?
Quite often that's above average in our area, but they all have the blackened staining. Yes.
Okay, so again, if somebody sees this type of coloration of the chimney, it's something that they definitely want to be taken care of. Would you agree with my assessment there?
That's the chimney talking to you, saying there's something wrong. You need to take care of it early.
Right. And also we'll look and that chimney crown, that concrete crown up on top, it don't look like it's in really good shape. You agree with me there?
Correct.
Okay, so again, are these the kind of things that a chimney service company can correct for the consumer?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So let's go to another one here. Now, what are these, Lee? Tell me what we're looking at right now.
You're looking at chimney caps, single flue caps, and top mount caps. So these are, we call them like baseball hat caps because they cover just the inner flues, but they just divert the water from the inside, so more water runs down the outer brick, stone, stucco, whatever you got.
Okay, so when we look at this, even though this is covering part of the chimney, what you're saying is the consumer, to protect their investment, needs a cut cap that covers the entire chimney and even has a ledge sticking off the edge, kind of like an umbrella, where the water will run off of that cap straight to the ground and not run into the chimney. Am I correct?
It's the best performing type, yes.
Okay, so let's go back to this chimney that we just looked at there, Lee. I want to clean that chimney up. What needs to be done to get rid of that really ugly looking stain on that chimney? How do you take care of that kind of problem?
Most of the time, pressure washing works.
Okay.
Sometimes you have to use acid or brushes, but most of the time, just pressure washing. And then there's always going to be mortar holes in the brick that have to be repaired after pressure washing.
Okay. And then after you have cleaned it up, is there any other protection besides we talked about the crown, we talked about the chimney cap? Is there any other kind of protection that we're going to use with that masonry chimney to help it survive the rainwater that's going to fall, which can fall in pretty atrocious amounts down there in Houston?
Sure. Yeah. After we fixed all the holes and everything else, after it's cleaned up, which is, it's a water repellent. We use a siloxane based water repellent that lasts at least 10 years. So it's, once we put it on, you don't even know it's on. But when you put water on it, you'll see it all beat up. It works great.
Okay, so that's something else we would do. Now, we talked about the chimney caps a little bit earlier, and you know, one of the things that I have often called a chimney cap that just covers the flue itself and diverts the water onto the crown, like this one here. I've always taught those in classes. You've heard me say and call those water diverters, because what they do is, yes, it will protect the flue, but it projects that water directly onto the chimney crown. Now, when you look at that crown, there's a lot of cracks in that crown, Lee. Is that kind of normal, what we find out there in the field?
Absolutely. Yep. That's normal.
Okay. So why do those chimney crowns crack like that, Lee? What causes that damage?
It can be age, or it can be it's designed incorrectly. If you don't have structure inside the concrete, if it even is concrete, a lot of times it's just leftover mortar from the bricks underneath it, but it doesn't have enough structure to be durable or last. Plus, all concrete cracks eventually, so it can just be age.
Right. And also, we see the chimney crown. If you look, you can kind of see where it's cracked, where it meets the chimney itself, and opening up little gaps right there. We also have that brick that kind of steps out on the chimney, and that's what we call in the industry corbelling. So when we look at that and you're looking at this chimney, Lee, is that telling us there's a lot of areas that water can get into that chimney? And like we talked about earlier, once it gets in, then it can damage those flue tile joints. Am I correct?
Correct. Cause a lot of damage.
Okay, so a lot of damage can come from these things. So again, here's another chimney. As we look at this, we don't have the corbelling where it projects out, but you can see that the top of the chimney projects out quite a bit. And we will look at this. If you look at it, we have the mortar joints that go straight across. We also have what's called the head joints that are up and down. Now, I'm not sure if you can see it in the photo there, Lee, but it looks to me like those head joints are really fat. And I also see where there's small gaps and separations in that, like right there where I'm moving my cursor right now. You kind of see that that's a little bit of a problem there. So, and then the crown itself is weathered very much away. So is this a chimney that's probably going to suffer some really severe damage if something isn't taken care of here?
Absolutely. That one's crying out for help. And if it goes too far, you end up rebuilding some of it.
Okay.
So this is the time to take care of it. It always seems expensive, but it's always cheaper than if you let it go.
Okay. So again, another chimney that needs work. Okay. Hang on one second. So going to the next one. Let me get back here. Hang on one second. I'm going to know my screen went blank or what here. So bear with me. So back with you. Sorry about that. But sometimes using dual screens gives me a fit. Okay. Whoops. Sorry, Lee. I am having a somewhat of a problem here with my share screen. I don't know why it's not sharing good with me. Let's get here.
Anytime you don't have a cap on a chimney like that one, you
Yeah.
see it tons of water down the flue. And we see it all the time. Where that's where critters get in, that's where rain gets in. We'll see composted leaves inside the fireplace. It just gets really ugly really fast.
Okay, so things get ugly fast. Okay, so I'm trying to bring our photos back up. Hopefully, it'll cooperate this time. We won't have the same problem here again. So, see if we can go to our next chimney. Okay, so here, Lee, this is kind of a side view of the chimney, and that's that corbelling we talked about. Now, as we look down that corbelling, you're not going to see this from the ground, but those are open brick cores. And you also see where the crown is actually recessed back. So something like this, is this a chimney that's going to have some significant water entry issues, you think, with this particular chimney here also?
Absolutely. Just it's a design flaw that's going to be exposed more and more over the years.
Okay, that's what I mean. So again, am I looking at anything that's unusual here? Anything I have showed photographs of, is any of these things unusual to you as a chimney sweep professional?
No, it's everyday stuff.
Okay, got you covered. So again, I brought this picture up because it's really a dramatic view and kind of backs up what I call the water diverter. So as you look, you can see that brown staining that's on top of that chimney crown. And a lot of people don't know what this comes from. But when you see this staining such as that, depending on the fuel that's in use, if you were using fuel oil in that chimney, then it could be the red dye that is in the fuel oil that's used. But you don't have any fuel oil down in Houston, Texas. But the other thing is, this comes from what we call galvanic corrosion, which is we have two different metals that are meeting, and when they do, they create an electrical charge that deteriorates, and this is what causes the rust to come off and stain the chimney. So do you see much of this issue down in Houston? Because we see it quite a bit in North Carolina.
Sure. Yep. Usually it's a cap that's rusted. That one, if I saw that in a picture from my market, I would think someone already repainted the cap, and that it used to be a rusted cap that ran off and it's repainted.
Okay. So that's not an unusual thing to see. So the thing is, if you're seeing a chimney that has these types of stains and there's a chimney cap up there, more than likely that chimney cap is not made out of the right materials. Would that be a true statement?
Correct.
Okay. So you sell chimney caps, Lee, and in fact, you make them at your own fabrication shop there in Houston. So what's the right material to use to make a chimney cap out of? What are those materials that we should be looking at to invest into to give us the best protection and the longest life?
Stainless is the way to go for everything. For us being on the coast too, it's not normal stainless, it's low carbon stainless, which reacts better in a marine environment.
Okay. So using a stainless steel with stainless steel fasteners, that's what we're going to look at, because a lot of times you may find an inferior product that doesn't have the right alloy of stainless steel, or they could have used the wrong fasteners that will cause that galvanic corrosion. Am I correct on what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Okay. So there you can kind of see how much area we protect. And again, if you can look at that chimney, Lee, does that chimney look stained to you, like it's holding water in and has been stained? It does to me.
Yeah, absolutely. You can tell the top was once a light color. It is no longer.
Okay, so now I'm kind of focused into something else, Lee. And there's the chimney, there's the roof. And then we got this gob of goop. Okay. So what is that goop that is smeared on that roof and up on the side of that chimney?
Well, underneath there is flashing. And if it was done correctly, you wouldn't need all the goop. But often that goop is either tar or some kind of a sealant that usually it's lack of knowledge. You don't know what else to do, so you just paint it everywhere. And in that case, they're not even neat with it.
Okay. So that's not an example of a quality repair if somebody does that.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so that's
ignorant.
not what you're looking for. That is what we call that's the flashing, and the flashing has two components. It has the flashing and it has the counter flashing going on to it. Also, many times, if you'll notice one of the previous photos, we have a hip that's up against it, like a little hip roof there. And what does that do? That cycles the water around the chimney and funnels it so it doesn't build up against the chimney where you can have a little garden growing, because water can catch right up there. But yeah, like Alex Jones just posted, not sure of the width, but no cricket. And Alex, you're exactly right. There is no cricket up there. So this is a lot of the problems, again, that we're going to find out in the field. So Lee, since Alex brought up about crickets, and we got a chimney here that doesn't have a cricket, is that a big problem where chimneys don't have those diversion crickets on them?
Absolutely. It's a problem because you start to get leaves and everything else and just water that just pounds it. But you get huge composted goopy leaves, and it's destined to leak. It's destined to fail.
Right. Now, you don't have a lot of snow down in Houston, I don't believe. But if this were in the northern regions where it gets colder, this is also going to be an area that snow is going to build up into this area. And that can cause premature leaking of the chimney also, because it keeps it so damp there. And a lot of times when you have these issues, what can happen is you actually find out that the roof sheeting, that is the plywood or the OSB board that's under those shingles, actually starts rotting, where that roofing material has got to be replaced, where it is rotted out. We're not talking about the shingles. We're talking about the plywood or the OSB board underneath the shingles. So is that an issue you find in your market area also, Lee?
Absolutely. Yeah. That sponginess, when you put your foot back there, it just sort of sinks. And you got to be careful because your foot will go through.
Yeah. So we also look, if you can see my cursor moving around, is that a little pinhole in the mortar I'm looking at right there, Lee?
Yeah, it looks bigger than a pin.
Okay, and there's a hole, there's a hole,
Yep.
there's a hole where my cursor's moving. If I look, does that mortar joint look like it has been recessed away, where that is an indication where the water is doing damage to this chimney?
Yes. Looks.
Okay. Okay, so Lee, if we had this chimney and we see we got a chimney cap that almost covers the whole chimney, but it doesn't cover the whole thing. In this chimney here, we're probably going to need to get a cricket. We're probably going to need to flash it, counter flash it. We're probably going to need to pressure wash it. We're going to need to waterproof it. And before we waterproof it, we're going to need to fill those little holes, what I call pinholes, and you said was bigger than pinholes. Am I looking at this properly?
Yes, I believe you are.
Okay, that's what I mean. So let me ask you this, Lee. Again, am I showing chimneys that are oddball, or am I showing chimneys that are real world of what you see out there every single day?
All right. These are real world chimneys where customers won't have a clue that anything's wrong at all sometimes.
Okay, so when we get this, a lot of times, what we're going to have here is on these waterlogged chimneys, the odor from these can be very atrocious, and it can actually smell like somebody's been basically smells like an ashtray in your home. Would that be a good descriptive term of the smell from a chimney like this?
Yep. Bonfire inside your house.
Right. So what's going on? And you're in an area, is there a lot of air conditioning in Houston, Lee?
There's tons. The air conditioning outside here.
Right. So basically, there's probably nowhere in Houston you're going to live that you're not going to have air conditioning in your home. Would that be a correct assessment?
Yeah, not anymore. That it used to be, but not anymore. Everybody.
As Americans, we're just too soft to live without air conditioning. So what goes on here when this chimney starts stinking, and we mentioned this earlier, that means that we have a very odorous condition inside the chimney. But what's happening in the summertime, which is a big issue, is air starts pulling down the chimney into the home through something called negative pressure, where people will start calling because their houses literally stink from this smell that's coming out of their chimney. I mean, it's a very horrendous smell. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. It's gross.
Okay, so let's go a little deeper into this odor that we smell, because what this is air that is laden with carcinogenics. And carcinogenics means this is a cancer causing substance. So what's happening is many houses today simply do not have enough air in the home. And so the fireplace, the chimney becomes the source for the air. Are you with me on what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Okay, so in the house, does everybody in Houston pretty well have some type of a clothes dryer right now, Lee, where they're drying their clothes? They may be using gas, they may be using electricity, but they are drying clothes. You got 3 kids. How many loads of clothes did your family do in a week, you think?
I can't count.
So I would need to ask Mrs. Roff that question.
Well, both of us, we both
Okay.
work at it, but still, it's a lot.
It's a lot. So when you're running that when you're running that clothes dryer, it's actually pushing air right out of the house at anywhere from 135 up to 165 cubic feet of air per minute. So these are the type things that pull this air down through this stinky chimney and ends up stinking up our houses. We also have other things in the home that can cause these types of issues, such as our kitchen exhaust and any other like bathroom exhaust. Other things can cause these issues. So one of the things that we train technicians, such as your guys today, is how to read pressures in the home using a device called a manometer. And a manometer reads air pressures in very minute amounts. So if people have this stinky chimney issue in their homes, is this something that you can diagnose and analyze and give them a strategy of how to correct this issue?
Sure. Yeah, it works great with the thermal cameras too.
Okay, so the thermal cameras are going to help us because we also have something called stack effect that goes on in the colder months. So there's a lot of conditions of this. And I know I've been teaching a lot of classes lately over pressure issues of different chimney sweep companies around the country. I just finished one last week, did one about 2 weeks before that. And as you know, Lee, your guys have access to my online training for these particular type of skills. Would that be correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's take a look at another chimney up here and let's see what else we got that we'll take a look at. Okay, so Lee, right now we're looking at a fireplace facade, or in some parts of the country, we may call it the fireplace profile. But that wood is right there. That is the mantel shelf above the fireplace. And then we see the crown molding and then the ceiling up above there. But what we're looking at is this white pattern on the chimney. You want to tell people what that white pattern that we're looking at of staining on this chimney is?
It's efflorescence, which is as the water kind of leaks in, the brick kind of works like a filter and filters out some of the minerals from the water. And as it runs through, those minerals are kind of left. So it leaves a white trail.
Okay. So what we've got here is, this is another indication we got water entry in the chimney. And you know, one of the neat things about this, like I said, for years, we've looked at the visible staining, but to get to the staining, we really can't see it until it starts staining. But with the new infrared technology that we're developing now and training people in, you're going to be able to detect this before the staining actually occurs. Would that be a true statement?
Absolutely.
Okay. So when you see this, again, if somebody is seeing this in their house, to me, this is telling us I may have a bad crown. I may have a deteriorated flashing. I may have a lack of a chimney cricket. I may have water absorbent brick. I may have brick that don't have the right pointing, the right tooling. There's a number of issues here that could be the cause of this. Would you agree with what I'm saying?
Yep. Chimney's crying out for help.
Okay. So Lee, how do you guys get trained to note this? Well, let's start with you. You came out of school and you decided that you would research to become a chimney sweep. But once you decided to do that, I don't believe the University of Houston taught you anything about chimneys. I don't think that was in your schooling at the University of Houston. Would that be correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay, so now you've developed this business plan, this entrepreneurial plan, and you're going to now open and serve the citizens of Houston, Texas. And if I remember right, your father was actually involved in the business at that point. So, how did you get your training to be able to detect these issues before you unleashed yourself on the citizens of Houston, Texas?
I went to the National Fireplace Training School in Indianapolis. That's where I got my start, my initial education. So they taught me the basics of how to do the job and a lot of stuff like this.
Okay. And then what about your guys today? Where are they getting, how are they getting trained?
They're getting trained in our training center. They're getting trained from me. They're getting trained from online training, where we have an online training center, which Jerry does a lot of the classes on, where they actually get constant training from the beginning of their career to the end of their career, so they can learn more and more and more stuff like this so they can help customers.
Okay. So are you a company that's dedicated to educating your workforce, Lee?
Every day.
Okay. So let's show them an example of what you're doing as a progressive company. Where will you be next week, Lee?
I will be a bunch of my guys are going up to Pennsylvania, I believe it is. My memory stinks. To actually train on manufactured fireplace changeouts.
Okay. So who's your instructor next week?
One of them is you.
Okay. So anyway, what you're doing is you're investing into the training of your people. Number one, you're going to New Cumberland, Pennsylvania, which is near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Now, that's just not right down the road, is it? That would be what, a 20-hour drive for you if you decide to take off in the car?
Yep, couple of days.
So what you're doing is you are investing into plane flights for all your workforce to go there. And I believe there's 5 of you coming to that class. You're investing into the hotel costs for the week, the lodging, the fees for them, for their meals, and then also the tuition that you will pay for them next week to attend this class in New Cumberland. Am I correct?
Yep, worth every dime.
So why, Lee, I got to ask you, why do you do that?
Because we want to be the best. Our customers deserve it. Our customers deserve someone who's educated that can come in and give them the very best diagnosis and the very best service so that our customers get the best. That's always what we've been about.
Okay. So that's your decision. You're willing to invest into your people in order for them to provide that level of service to the citizens of Houston, Texas, who you serve. Am I correct?
Sure. My people deserve it. My customers deserve it.
There you go. Okay, so we pulled up another chimney. Tell them a little bit about what we're looking at here at Lee.
Same. I mean, the white stuff, anytime you have white on chimneys, they're talking about efflorescence. So it's the same thing. There's a water issue, something going on uphill that's causing that one spot to have a lot of efflorescence.
Okay. So again, when this is found, this is something that your guys are trained to diagnose, to analyze, to come up with a strategy, and from that point to implement the strategy for resolution. Have I just described what you provide in your company to your customers?
Sure. You got to listen to what the chimney tells you.
There you go. Okay. So anyway, just wanted to show those things. Now here, this is a stone chimney, and a stone chimney can give us some really big water issues. Now, what we're looking at here, if you'll notice, they actually do have an overhanging crown, but you can see that we have significant staining on this chimney. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So in this situation, and the way that this is not solid stone, this is what we call veneer stone, or some people call it lick and stick stone. So what we're doing is we're sticking this stone onto some type of a surface underneath it. But behind that stone, there's all kinds of hollow areas, and that water runs through it. I know you've heard me in classes say, hey, it's just like little rivers, creeks, and gullies back behind that stone. And that's what we've got here and one of the problems here is Nobody took the right steps to stop that water entry whenever that chimney was built. So this is probably, we're looking at a problem that's probably going on for probably 20 years. Would you agree?
Yeah, so I think since it was built.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. You're looking at that chimney. Look at all those flues we got going out up there and all of those single flue rain diverters we got up there. Tell me what you think you would find when you lowered that camera down inside of that chimney and do that internal chimney video inspection with this camera that's designed to go into that chimney and take photos from mere inches away. What you think we're going to find in this chimney, Lee?
Minimally, you're going to find flue top mortar holes. So in between those 1 or 2 foot sections, you're going to see mortar missing. And then in the smoke chamber, you'll probably see mortar joints eroded in there too, which is kind of like an upside down funnel that's at the bottom of that takes the smoke from the fireplace and funnels it into the inner flue.
Right. Now, another thing you're commonly going to find is if consumers look on the rear wall of their fireplace, if it's a water entry issue, commonly, if you look at the back wall of the fireplace, you'll find separations, you'll find cracked brick, you'll find all kinds of problems on that rear wall. That's what we find in North Carolina. What do you find in Houston, Texas?
Sure. A lot of times if you push on it, it all moves.
Okay. So you push on it, all moves. And if you look, there's a picture of a house. And when you look at that house, you'll see that I've got a yellow arrow on there. And you'll also see there's a red arrow pointing up. And what this is pointing is two of the things on a house that are done to prevent water entry. Number one is that roof overhang. So when the water comes off, not only does it come off, but it goes into a guttering system so it doesn't run down the side of the house. When they built that house, if you look at the windows, Lee, can you see where there is a little corbel projection where the water would run off of the house there also?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Right. So these are the steps that people take in their home, in building a home to not have water entry issues in a home. So again, Lee, we've talked about some problems here tonight with chimneys. And again, this is all about making a chimney check a part of your annual spring cleaning. So again, let's repeat again. Why do we want to get the chimney checked in the springtime? What's the benefit to that consumer?
Let's catch problems early. Let's make sure, there's sweeping, yes, that's a safety concern, but let's catch the problems when they're small so they don't become huge problems. That way we can save customers and make the best performing fireplace and chimney system we can.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, Lee. What's it like to be a chimney sweep in this business in the month of October, the month of November? If someone calls you and they got a problem, can you get there tomorrow?
No, it's just too many.
So as you like me, you network with a lot of people in this industry around the country. So actually, if someone waits till in the fall, they may wait 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 months, 3 months just to get a technician to come to their home. Would that be true?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the way it is.
That's the way it is. Okay, Lee, so let's touch on something else here tonight, okay? And that is, how does a consumer know who to call? In other words, let's face it, we're consumers. We don't know nothing about chimneys. We really don't. So what should a consumer be doing to search out to get a competent chimney service company to come to their home, Lee?
I think the first thing you do is you get online, read reviews, read responses to reviews. Also, look for some kind of education somehow. Now, everybody says they're certified, but look to the actual certifying agencies, CSIA or the Chimney Professional Organization, and make sure that we actually get someone out to your house, not just the whole company, but the actual person that comes to your house that knows what they're talking about, who's actually had training.
Okay, so let's go a little deeper in that, okay? In the chimney service industry, there are 2 national organizations that actually test and certify chimney sweeps. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, so let's go into them. The first one is the CCP program. And the CCP program stands for Certified Chimney Professional. That particular program is administered by the National Chimney Sweep Guild, which is a national trade group of chimney service companies across America. That is one of the places that a company can go to get this testing and initial certification. The other organization is called the Chimney Safety Institute of America. For short, it is the CSI, and they also have a certification program. Now, both of these do have advanced type certification. So let's go back to Lee. Lee, what is the certifications that you hold as a chimney service technician in this industry? What is Lee Roff? Who is he certified by?
CSIA Master Certified Chimney Sweep. I was just before they had even that existed. I had the regular Certified Chimney Sweep certification, dryer vent certifications, which is a little different. Also the CCP, I have the master certification for that as well as NFI, which we didn't talk about, National Fireplace Institute gas certification.
Right. Well, the NFI, they're basically certifying appliance installers. Tonight, I wanted to stay over here on this side with the chimney and venting side. So what you have done, you have attained your master level certification under both the CCP umbrella and under the CSI umbrella. Would that be a correct statement?
Correct.
Okay. And all of that took you going to a lot of classes, attending a lot of things. I know that in your career, this is next weekend, the first time you've traveled to go to training somewhere or have sent your people to do training. So that meant that you had to take a certain amount of classes to get there. So here's our recommendation for you as a consumer. If you're listening to us right now, number one, consult the internet. Go to Google reviews. And what you're looking for is to see what other customers talk about and say about that company. Now, be aware, we're all human. A company can make a mistake once in a while, okay? But what you're looking for is someone that doesn't make monumental amounts of customer complaints. But if there is a complaint, did the company take care of the problem? Lee, do you agree with what I'm just saying?
Absolutely.
Then the next thing is finding a technician that's going to come to your home, not just the owner, but the technician carries certifications to come into the home. Is that important also, Lee?
Absolutely.
So, and then we have a lot of people today that are becoming what we call dual and triple certified. They are certified by CCP under NCSG, as a certified chimney sweep under CSI, and you mentioned NFI, which is a National Fireplace, the National Fireplace Association, National Fireplace
Institute.
Institute. Thank you. Pretty bad. I used to be on that board. I can't remember. I guess I can blame that on my age, Lee. But anyway, seeing people that can have these multiple certifications to help assure you that you have a competent individual. So Lee, before we close out, we've got your email address up on the screen right now. But just in case we have someone here, we are broadcasting all over the internet tonight. If we have somebody in Houston, Texas, how do they get in touch with you? What's your phone number? What's your website address? So people can research who Lee Roff is and if they want to contact your office.
Yeah, it's lordschimney.com. The phone number is 281-497-4000. It's on the website. And you can look me up on Facebook. You can look the company up on Facebook. Send me a note. I'll be happy to help anybody anywhere on anything chimney related or whatever I can help.
Yeah. Now, the other thing you do, Lee, and we didn't talk about this, but you actually do what we call virtual assessments. Am I correct? So
Yes,
tell
sir.
folks what a virtual assessment is, because you actually do that sitting right in your office. So tell them what they do to get a virtual assessment where you can take a look at this chimney without even going to the house.
Sure. If you go to our website, you can click on a little button. It will let you schedule an appointment for a Zoom meeting with me or one of my technicians, and you can upload pictures. So I can use those pictures to try to diagnose the very best we can what's going on with your chimney.
Okay. So, and what's the charge for that, Lee?
$0.
So that's completely free. There is no charge for that. So what I'm getting, Lee, you're willing to help people and help them come up with answers of how they can take care of their chimney problems. Am I correct?
That's why we do what we do.
Right. And then one of the things you also do is a couple days a week, I believe you do a live broadcast on your own Facebook, social media, right?
Yep.
Okay. So anyway, brother, I want to appreciate you taking some time out of your day today, coming on this show with us. If you're listening to us, please feel free to share this episode out on your own social media. That's the whole purpose of this show. I don't work for consumers. I provide no services. I work for companies doing training and coaching and other things. We do this show so we can help consumers understand and how they can take care of these stinky chimneys, these waterlogged chimneys, these problems before they become major. So appreciate you joining us tonight. My name's Jerry Isenhour. My company is CVC Success Group. Reach out to us if you're listening at any time, if we can help you in what we provide, which is coaching, consulting, and training for members of the industry. But please feel free to share this out on your social pages. It may just help a consumer in your market area. So Lee, once again, I appreciate you joining me tonight. And with that, we'll end this broadcast. Please join us next time on the next edition of the Fireplace Show, sponsored by CVC